3 questions on intersectionality.
The first thing is, what does intersectionality mean to me?
As a young person, intersectionality is very important to me. I find it very welcoming and I feel very heard when people in communities that I'm a part of are displayed as role models to me. I also think it's increasingly important for people to learn more about other communities and how they can overlap and how certain communities are affected more than others when it comes to certain events like the climate crisis.
To me, intersectionality means celebrating diversity between each and every person and talking about how everyone's different. And that's really important to me because I believe that we need to celebrate our diversity, the differences between us, to make us all feel unique, which we all are in our own right. There are factors that can link everyone together, but there are also factors that are different in between each and every person, and that's what intersectionality means to me.
I identify as a queer, cis woman who has additional needs, is a carer, and from a working class background. Intersectionality means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. However, to me, it is different aspects that make up who I am. There are various things that make up a person, and some of these identified factors, including my sexuality, additional needs, and class, can affect not just the way I perceive myself, but how other people also perceive me. It's really important that people understand that these labels of queer, disabled, carer are important aspects of my life, but they are not my whole life. And that it's really important that we work to make sure everybody is included and feels accepted. However, these labels do not dominate and rule your perception of that person.
My understanding of intersectionality is that it's an approach that recognises that different marginalised identities and groups often intersect, whether that's through the struggles that they face, their presence in people, because people can often have multiple intersecting identities, as do I, and you may also have shared experiences with other intersectional identities.
How does intersectionality impact my day-to-day life?
In my day-to-day life, intersectionality affects me in many different ways. For example, I may have a conversation about my different identity or my friends. We may have a conversation about topics such as gender identity or sexuality, and talk about this together. Or I may talk about it, may be educated about intersectionality as well. Talking about different religions, different ways that people are different, basically, just on a day-to-day basis. Talking to people who, similar and different, just understanding other people and myself as well. And that's how intersectionality impacts my day-to-day life.
So personally, I have quite a good and positive experience of intersectionality, because I believe it allows me to access groups of like-minded people, to discuss issues and be politically active, to stand up for people who do not have as much of a voice as I do. Although I believe my intersectionality has mainly a positive impact, there is also some negativity. I sometimes find myself having to explain why I fit into certain groups and how my identity is valid, even though it might not look the same as somebody else with a similar identity. I also get asked several times a week why I identify as certain things and have to explain the lack of choice I have in some of these labels. I think it's really important that we can educate people, but sometimes having to explain myself and prove that I'm valid can be frustrating and annoying.
As somebody with multiple intersecting identities, so I have mental illness, I'm disabled physically, I'm neurodivergent, I grew up in care, and I'm also part of the LGBTQ community, it can sometimes be very difficult to explain to people that all of these identities and these groups aren't set different groups, and that often they co-occur within the same person, as is the case with me. And separating out symptoms or traits or thoughts or experiences out into those different groups isn't always feasible, and it's the same with funding for services. They will often design them for a specific group but then exclude other groups, but not understanding that all of those can exist within the same person, if that makes sense. And I think that's one of the things that intersectionality really helps with, understanding that people are more than just a tick box in a group, and that people cover multiple different areas, and that people are whole and complicated.
When I communicate with people in the same communities as me, I feel uplifted, and it definitely impacts my mood positively. Whereas on days where perhaps I haven't interacted with people who've shared my experiences, it can bring down my mood, especially when I witness or face discrimination against people in groups such as my own.
What is one thing that I wish people understood about intersectionality?
All of these labels I give myself affect my life, but they're not my whole life. I still have likes and dislikes to people that have the same or different labels as me, and I still have different aspects that affect my personality and traits. That I'm not trying to fit into a label and I'm just being myself is really important. However, some people struggle to understand this and think that if we don't meet certain criteria, we can't subscribe to a certain label or identity. Something that I believe is really, really important is that we accept everybody regardless of the intersectionality that they identify with or the labels they use. That includes making schools, education, workplaces, and public spaces safe and accessible for everyone. This is something that's really important to me, and I find that a lot of places fall short with this. Intersectionality is an amazing thing, and we should celebrate all these amazing aspects that make us unique and different. And for those people who don't relate to these labels, it's important we work to ensure that we encourage everybody to be themselves and can access anything they need freely and safely.
I wish people understood that it was possible for people to be in more than one group, and that intersectionality affects everyone in their day-to-day lives, whether they're aware of it or not. And that having a good understanding of intersectionality can help you to become a nicer person to interact with, and can help you understand other people's thoughts, feelings, and reactions to certain situations.
One thing I wish everyone understood about intersectionality is that everyone has got intersectionality, and how it's the way that we're born. In most cases, it's the way that we're born. It's something that we can't really change, and that people shouldn't be discriminated against because of their intersectionality. And I feel like that's really important, that everyone should know that about intersectionality as well.
This is quite a specific and weird one, but I wish people understood that the point of intersectionality is about alliance, not about competition. I think sometimes when we're discussing the different experiences and the different approaches, we can get into a habit of a hierarchy and saying, well, it's worse being this and it's easier being this, and this affects you more and this affects you less. But actually, I think it's much more important that we focus on the things that we have in common, the discrimination that we face from a society that isn't built for us, and the shared experiences that we have trying to deal with that society. And also the joy and the sense of belonging that you experience when you find a community of people that are like you, especially when those people haven't been consistently represented around you. Intersectionality isn't about ranking who has it worse, about comparing the different groups. It's about fighting together to achieve the best outcomes for everyone. And it's about understanding that when you're intersectional, you have to fight for the rights of the groups that you don't belong to, because we all have to help each other.
Thanks for watching.